So in that raster, I've thrown away some potentially useful data. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create a surface from that, which is all relatively low-lying material. So we've got that raster here. I'll actually interpolate that surface. This time I'll take the same projection and I'll crunch that down to something much smaller, every 10 centimeters. And this time I will interpolate the data. Update that grid, and it's going to say this is going to create an awful lot of points. Are you sure? Yes, I'm sure. Go ahead and do that. It'll take a little while here, and then export that to the cloud. You can see that's over here. It's been created, so I can hit OK and drop out of that. So now I've got two surfaces. I've got the ground points and the raster. If I hold Control and select each of those, I'm going to go to the Tools, Distances, Cloud to Cloud Distance. I'm going to make sure that my reference cloud is my raster, my interpolated raster, and I'm wanting to compare ground points, so OK. And it uses some basic analysis, and it says, are you happy with these assessments? I'm going to go yes. I always go yes. I never fart out with these settings, and OK. So here, if I turn off the raster now, we have the ground points. Instead of being RGB, we're now looking at the raster, which is the distance that they are away from the other surface. So if I go down to here, you can see that we can look at the histogram and control it. And at the moment, I'm looking at stuff that is up to 1.8 meters off the prior surface. Now I can grab that and I can start to take this down to losing material that I'm going to keep an eye on this area here because I want to keep as much of that surface as possible. So we'll see if I keep on going too far, I start to take material off that construction surface. You can see that I've lost the ridges of the crests of the slopes. That's no good. So at that stage, going down to 9 centimeters would be a bit aggressive. So here instead, I'll keep on going until I nominally just have the whole of that slope. That's pretty good. And if I go back and look at this, we can see how I've trimmed a lot of the high information out of here as well. So I'm reasonably happy with that. So we'll call that what? 0.35 meters, just to give it a nice round number that I can quote. And then we'll go up to the Edit, Scale Our Fields, Filter by Value, and I will split based upon that. So now I've taken this ground points file here, which still exists. I haven't lost it yet, and I've split it into two files here. So if I turn one of these off, you will see that that is just the high data. And I'm going to, just for filing purposes, I'm going to drag that high data into this group, and I'm going to call that off ground. I don't need that original ground points because that is in there and that one that's there. So for file keeping here, I'll delete that one. I'll go back to my ground points extract here, and I'll turn that back to RGB. Now, it's not perfect. At this stage, I think it's good for me to be able to show you that I might actually have to go in by hand and start wholesale clearing some of this vegetation, or it's fairly obvious when you create a contour with some of that material that it is not good. Equally, in areas where the slopes were sparsely vegetated, it's done a very, very, very good job of taking off the vegetation and bushy stuff that was on those slopes. Maybe not perfect in some places, but we're doing algorithmic stuff here, so there's a reason that it's not perfect. So at some point, I would clean up those rasters. We'll call that ground and just do some filing. And we'll put that back in there. So this would become the thing that I would do another projection of to export for CAD purposes. And I would probably do a 0.5 meter grid. I never want to interpolate. I always want raw data and upgrade the grid. And that would be the cloud that I would probably give to my CAD people as a LAS file. It's not perfect. I'm not expecting it to be with 5 minutes of showing you how to do it. But that's nominally a way that I can get good vegetation removal from slopes without overcropping and destroying what I know is good ground. And then I would take that and I'd file, save it as, and I'd save it as a LAS file, because I know that most of the people who are using CAD can import LiDAR files, and that's a LiDAR file essentially. Okay, that's that.